Thank you. Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting being held under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act. There it is. And/or General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and/or the Town of Wareham Wetland Protection Bylaw Division 6 and any other applicable laws on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. All matters listed may involve a discussion and possible vote. Location, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., room 320. All hearings of the Wareham Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Wareham Wetlands Protection Bylaw Division 6. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Before we start, I just wanted to ask Autumn if you've been sworn in.
Yes.
So Autumn is now a voting member of the Conservation Commission. Okay. Paula Jean, have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
And you're now an associate member of the Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Mike, have you been sworn in?
Yes.
You are a continued member. Carol, have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
You are a continued member of the Conservation Commission. I think that does my preliminary, so if we would go to the first public hearing, please. Oh, yeah. Introduce yourself. Squame, you can start.
Kwame Barty.
Carol Melanson.
Sandy Slavin.
Denise Schultz.
Michael Mercier.
Autumn Wood.
Paula Jean O'Neill.
Joshua Faraday.
Thank you. Now you can start. I lost my thingy. Okay.
This request for determination applicability for Brilliant Solutions, Collins Civil Engineering Group, INC 225 South Main Street, West Bridgewater, Mass. 02379, to upgrade a residential septic tank, Assessors Map 128, Lot 1002-D1, 5 Bartlett Lane, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Who's here representing this project?
My name is Dave Kleinert from Collins Civil Engineering Group.
Dave, can you spell your last name? I didn't quite hear it.
Yes, it's Kleinert. It's K-L-E-N-E-R-T.
Okay, Dave, it's your turn to tell us about the project.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. If I can share the screen, I can bring the project up on my computer.
Go ahead, unless I need to give you the ability.
Okay, start. Oops. I seem to be disabled on the sharing screen.
I'm gonna make you a host, but I'm afraid if you just leave during our meeting, it's gonna stop it, so,
Sure.
Could someone turn off a bank of lights, please?
thanks. Never mind, we figured it out.
Just one. Thank you.
You should have the ability to share your screen.
Okay, great. All right. And please let me know if you can see this, see my screen.
We can, you enlarging it would help.
Okay, yep. So this is for 5 Bartlett Lane. This is a septic repair. The Bartlett Pond is to the east of the property. It's a small 3-bedroom house. We had the wetland flags by Brooke Monroe, wildlife scientist, and we just show the orange line here as the 50-foot buffer, the purple line here as the 100-foot buffer, and the blue line here is the 150-foot buffer, which means that we can put in a normal septic system as opposed to a fast system. And this has been approved by the Board of Health. What we're proposing to do is work a little bit inside the 100-foot buffer. We're going to abandon the tank. There's a tank and there's a pit that's shown in red here. We'll abandon those in place. We'll rerun the plumbing out to a new tank and then out to the septic system. So the only work within the 100-foot buffer will be this trench digging here and the abandonment of the tank and the pit. These are in previously disturbed lawn areas. We do propose a silt fence, and it's going to go from the shed corner. This is an erosion control 8-inch straw wattle, and it will go from the shed corner to the house corner, and then from the house corner it will go over about 40 feet. This will encompass any work that we're doing inside the 100-foot buffer. Let me see. So what we're proposing is an 8-inch straw wattle. The system is in a existing utility easement. This was created for the lot next door, which was taken over by Mass Wildlife for conservation purposes. And this easement is, even though it exists on paper, it no longer serves a purpose. And we do mention that in a note over here, utility easement, as far as the book and page for that easement. And the Board of Health was okay with that, and they were satisfied. So, and this is for an RDA, negative determination 3, for applicability. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Josh?
Yeah, my recommendation to the commission would be a -3 with, the one condition of the erosion control remaining while the project is in progress, and not to be removed until after everything's completed. With that being said, there are other things to address on this property. It looks like there was vegetation cleared within the wetland, and a tree that had started to be cut and then for some reason stopped. I'm not really sure what was going on there. But if you could talk to the applicants and let them know that no vegetation should be cut at the bottom of that bank, and including that bank.
Okay.
But with that being said, that's my report.
That tree that's partially removed, is it gone?
It's not partial. The entire tree is still there. They just took a chainsaw to like a third of it. Like they cut a third of the way through the tree and then stopped.
Got a big X in it.
Only so it will fall down. Questions? Denise?
The concern was over that tree when I was looking at the property, and I think that if that tree does come down during this process, that it needs to be replaced. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Carol?
No questions.
Kwame?
No questions, thank you.
Michael?
No questions, thank you.
Autumn?
No questions, thank you.
Paula Jean?
No questions, thank you.
I have none, other than the tree will die.
It's more susceptible to get a disease now, definitely. It wasn't, I think the term is bridled. It wasn't, cut all the way through or around the trunk. So, I mean, it could make a recovery. I guess we'll just wait and see.
So
But
at what point do we require a replacement?
so it's interesting because this is an RDA, so there's no reason for me to follow up on this project after this. We could make it a condition of the RDA that I go back in a year or so and take a look.
Okay, on the plan, which tree is it that was partially cut?
You-
Dave, do you know which one we're talking about?
No, I do not know I don't know which tree that is. Could you point it out for me?
It's a
Is it
tree
over here?
located by wetland flag number 12, maybe even closer. It's
By wetland flag number 12?
Yeah, it's within the wetland.
Okay, so it's in this area here.
Yeah, closer to Bartlett Pond, yes. So,
Yeah.
like I said, it's within the wetland, so it's on the other side of your flags.
So okay, so it's a tree that we don't show on the plan.
Yep.
I mean, I'm acceptable to having it monitored to make sure that it survives.
Okay, anybody online or in the audience would like to speak to this project? I'm seeing none. We will add that, we will request that Josh returns in a year to find the condition of the tree.
Move to close the hearing.
A motion to close the hearing?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. The hearing is closed.
600.
Yes.
Move to accept the RDA with a -3, which will include the erosion control staying in place until the project is complete, and a 1-year check by by Josh to make sure that the tree that's been partially cut is still living and surviving. If not, then it needs to be replaced.
Second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Next one, please.
Thank you.
This is a request for notice of intent for Terry L. and Catherine E. Edwards, GAF Engineering, 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to conduct a 6-foot wide stamped concrete walk form and existing walk to the existing pier on Accessors Map 22, Lot C, 50 Winship Avenue, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Who is here to represent this project?
Brian Grady with GAF Engineering. With me is Terry Edwards, property owner.
Thank you. You're on.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you were able to visit the site.
Thank you for staking.
You're welcome. What Terry's proposing is to construct a 6-foot stamped concrete walkway, similar to probably what you took if you were at the site, similar to what you walked down to get to the location. Reason for this is to access the pier. Currently has a golf cart, which he will take down there periodically over the lawn. We're looking to make this a hardened surface to do that, so that we don't wear ruts in the lawn, cause erosion, anything of that nature. It makes it, it facilitates, what it does is facilitates getting people and equipment down to the pier to go out onto the boat. We're providing drainage on each side of the stamped pathway to infiltrate any rainwater into the ground so that it doesn't get down onto the beach. The resource areas that we're working in, properties located on land subject to coastal storm flowage. We're not proposing any fill or any grade changes, so there's no impact to land subject to coastal storm flowage. The other resource area is coastal bank. A portion of that slope that you walked on, if you were there, is coastal bank. It meets the guidelines for DEP definition of a coastal bank, but it does not have any of the performance standards associated with a coastal bank. Those performance standards are, it's a vertical buffer to stormwater, storm damage, and/or it's a sediment source. So the bottom of the bank is armored. It's a granite seawall. So there is no erosion occurring, and there will be no erosion occurring in the future. And we're not changing the grades or adding any fill, removing any fill, so we're not affecting its ability to act as a buffer to storm damage prevention. So there's no impact to the wetland performance standards. We do have a file number from DEP. There were no comments from DEP, so in their opinion, it's an approvable project. We understand under your local wetland bylaw, there's some issues with activity in the no activity zone. So we're looking to open a discussion and a dialogue, see what questions, comments you have, and if there's some way we can work through this.
Thank you. Josh?
So I think the one Thing holding up this project is the work within the 30-foot no activity zone. There are, the commission may waive or reduce the no activity zone, which, this project may or may not be seen in that, under this definition, but I'll just read it so everyone's aware. If it's in the judgment, such a reduction is necessary to accommodate reasonable access by path or other least intrusive means of access to other portions of the property or the shoreline, as long as there is no other alternative means of access the other portions of the property, and that alternatives does not exceed a 5-foot naturally surfaced path or an elevated boardwalk not to exceed 3 feet in width within 5 feet of the pathway. Such alterations may require wetland replication. My interpretation of that is if you have a 30-foot fully vegetated, no activity zone, and someone is looking for access to the shore, that's where this 5-foot path would become in play. We've taken a hard stance on increased impervious surface recently and in the past, but I think that's the biggest sticking point for this project.
Thank you. Denise?
I take issue with the no activity zone. We do not allow activity in a no activity zone. We haven't in the past, and I think for consistency, we need to keep it in place with this project.
Kwame?
When I went to visit the site, it was clear that it would be in the no activity zones, so something like this to proceed, it would be very, going against our bylaws.
Carol?
Nothing further, thank you.
Michael?
Again, nothing further, thank you.
Autumn?
No questions, thank you.
Paula Jean? Okay, I do. You're looking for a 6-foot wide path, concrete path. Then you're looking for another 2 feet wide, a foot on each side for drainage. So you're looking for an 8-foot wide path.
Well, the path's 6 feet.
You're going to disturb at 8 feet wide. Now,
Correct.
is the slope so steep that you would have a tough time getting a golf cart up and down it as it comes close to the pier? Because that is a pretty steep slope. Do you expect a problem under wet conditions or anything like that?
Well, walking down that slope on wet grass is difficult.
Yep.
Yes. Golf cart can travel on a steeper slope than that.
Has there been any consideration of putting that path closer to the boundary line, property line, where it's already disturbed, as opposed down the middle of a very lush, green, highly nitrogated lawn?
The location could be varied, yes. There's lawn up to the property line. There's a
Yeah, but you already have a drainage component up against the property line. So if that's the case, you can probably keep your path within 6 feet versus 8 feet, is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, there's a stone
Yeah,
little under the fence. There's a stone area. It wasn't particularly constructed as a drainage area. It's
But with a stone there, it acts that way.
right. We would have to maybe elevate the pathway above it to get it into the stone. If you know what I'm saying, that's more of a landscape feature for maintenance under the fence for mowing and maintenance and things of that nature. Really wasn't put in
As opposed to...
as a drainage.
Now, with an 8-foot wide path, you're going to have to remove all those benches with stone underneath it and that boat with stone underneath it. Was that ever permitted? Or they're just sitting on the grass?
Uh,
Or are they installed?
Seashells. They're just seashells, so you...
yeah, there's
Are the
been-
benches installed or just sitting on the ground?
They're-
They're sitting on the grass.
Yeah, they're not on a foundation or anything, no.
Now, Josh, do me a favor, will you read that bylaw again where we have some leeway?
Yep. So it says the Commission may waive or reduce the no activity zone requirements, and we list quite a few reasons. I think this is the most appropriate. If it's in the judgment, such a reduction is necessary to accommodate reasonable access by path or other least intrusive means of access to another portion of the property or shoreline, as long as there is no other alternative means of accessing the other portions of the property, and that such alteration does not exceed a 5-foot naturally surfaced path or an elevated boardwalk not to exceed 3 feet in width within the 5-foot pathway. Such alterations may require wetland replication.
So that's naturally, a natural surface 5 foot wide, not an 8-foot wide concrete path with drainage ditches on both sides. So it is possible for our bylaws to give them access to their pier, but would have to be greatly modified from what we have in front of us in order to give us a authorization to allow them access to their pier. I know it's in the 30-foot no activity, but can't go up and down that slope and that green grass without slipping and falling on something that's going to hurt.
I don't think it falls within those guidelines.
You don't think, how do you object to that guideline giving them
I
a
think
path
that
to their property?
They have plenty of room to get down there.
How?
It's not as if there's woods on either side and you're trying to go through a wooded area. It's completely cleared lawn.
Yeah, but
all the way down that hill.
Have you
There's
walked
stone
that
steps. So the alternative is the stone steps on the property.
Yeah, but that's.
And they have a golf cart to get down there. I mean, there's
But a
other
golf
means to
cart
get
gives them-
down to the dock. It's a no-activity zone, Sandy.
I don't think it's a safe, I personally do not think it's a safe path from their house to the dock with a wet grass. I really don't. That's my opinion.
That's
You
your
take
opinion.
something in your hand and you're walking down, and you have some older person, and it's just hard to go up and down that slope when it's wet, carrying things to and from the boat. I think our bylaw allows us to give them a 5-foot path of natural material to go down to their wetland, to their waterfront.
And I disagree.
Well, what we can do in that, following up on that discussion that you just had, comments you just had, we can explore alternatives. One of your concerns is the width. We could get rid of the drainage on either side, but that would channel any rainwater down. Not that it would have any impact, but it would channel it down. And I can have discussions with Terry about alternative surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because concrete's not pervious. Damp concrete.
Right, we can
So-
have a discussion what the available alternative pervious surfaces might be.
Now, I
Reduce
believe
the
that a
width.
golf cart's narrower than 5 feet. I don't think they're as wide as I am tall. So 5 feet,
Yeah, they come in varying wheel widths. I think they're 48 inches, something along
What's
those. The wheelbase of a golf cart, of your golf cart, 40 inches?
No, it's more than 5 probably. It is close to 5.
because I wouldn't be willing to go over 5 feet. That's,
Our bylaw gives us an option to allow them access to the waterfront, and I think it has to be a safe access to the waterfront. I would have a tough time going up and down that steep slope and that wet grass without slipping. That's just me. Carolyn, anything other comment? Kwame? Would you like to see a new plan?
That's what I was just gonna say. I would like to see maybe a safe, alteration to the plan. So if there is kind of some flexibility with the bylaw, without anybody breaking their necks, that would be great. Because right now, I mean, it's like, you look at it and it's actually going through the no activity zone.
Yes, it is.
It's a no-activity zone, but I included pictures in the notice, clearly to point out the lush green lawn that it is. It's not a natural site. There's been a home on this property 75, 100 years,
But not this home.
not this home.
This is a new home.
Yeah.
Yes, it was built within the last 2 years, but my point being, the property's been used, it's been a lawn area, the landscaping was there, the lawn was used, the pier's been there, so it's not virgin forest woods, it is an altered site, it's just not altered with impervious.
How did the previous homeowner access the dock? Any idea?
I don't know what they had for a boat, I don't know how often
That
they...
stone dock has been there a while. I believe we authorized the extension
Correct.
recently.
Correct. And there's electric and water service that has been installed down to the concrete part. It hasn't been brought out to the end of the pier, but that extension was authorized in the last 10 years, maybe?
I remember it.
Yeah.
But even if they may not have used the dock, they still would have used the steps to go down to the beach. So I was just wondering how the prior homeowner managed that hill,
Right. I don't know. I don't know how often they used the boat, what they needed to do.
or if they had a boat, you know,
Or if
just
they had a
play,
boat.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
Okay,
that concrete pier was in disrepair. Right, so I don't know if it was used. Don't know the details regarding that.
Michael, any comment?
Same thing, I think we'd like to see a new plan, maybe with a smaller path.
Not down the middle, yeah.
Exactly, not down the
See if we
middle.
can put it down the edge.
Correct.
Bottom,
And we can have that discussion and see what we
Paula Jean?
can do.
You need to speak into a microphone.
Nothing further, thank you.
thank you. You're hearing some of our comments. Can we see you in 2 weeks? Will 2 weeks take care of it, or do you want further out?
Let's try 2 weeks, sure.
When's our next hearing?
July 5th, I believe. July 5th.
July 5th?
Yes.
Okay, so is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this project? Anybody online?
Seeing none.
I'll take a motion to continue in July 5th.
I move that we continue this hearing till July 5th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, opposed,
Aye.
abstained, 600. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, please.
Okay, this is a request for notice of intent for Dos Amigos Realty LLC, JC Engineering, 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to construct a new single-family dwelling with a rear deck and front porch, paved driveway, Title V septic system, associated utilities and grading on Assessors Map 74, Lot 1010-A1, 10 Squirrel
Thank you.
Island Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Who's here to represent this project?
Sam Iamelli, JC Engineering.
Thank you. Okay, Sam, your turn.
All right, yeah, this project at 10 Squirrel Island, it's the construction of a single-family home, including construction of a driveway, septic system, installation of a well, and associated utilities and grading. A portion of the proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer to a wetland. We would be installing over 200 linear feet of erosion control to ensure no disturbance to the wetland there along the 30-foot no activity zone buffer. We've also had the property staked out about 2 weeks ago, including all activity and erosion control. I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Just a question, I can see a tree line on a portion of the plan. Is there a tree line in the back?
It follows the property line up to the 30-foot no activity zone and then follows that back down.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
I'll just mention a few things that the commission has been requiring in recent filings. I think the commission would like to see some dry wells added to the property. and 30-foot no disturb signage for the edge of the proposed tree line. Other than that, the septic is as far as possible outside of the 100-foot, 150-foot wetland offset. Those would be my comments.
Any problem setting the dry wells?
Not a problem at all, nope.
All right. Denise, I know you're going to ask for a fence and signs.
Right. Some type of delineation for the no activity zone and the signage.
And
That we've
signage.
been requiring. Josh has some type of signs that we've been requiring put up.
So
Okay.
we're looking for permanent fencing.
Permanent fencing along that buffer.
Correct.
Yes.
Another question, though. There's off to the left, it says optional smaller house footprint.
Yes, so the applicant has two footprints in mind. Right now on the site plan, I'm showing the larger footprint in bold with the smaller footprint kind of dashed in there, and the dimensions of that smaller footprint are off to the side there on the left.
So he hasn't decided on what kind of houses, or what houses.
We're down to
there?
two options, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Carol,
No questions at this time.
Kwame,
No questions, thank you.
Michael.
Yeah, just one. That's a pretty heavily wooded area. Do we have confirmation that there's no endangered species lurking in that region?
Yes, I don't know if I included on the packet, but we are outside the endangered species area.
Do you have confirmation of that?
Yes, I can provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Autumn.
No questions, thank you.
Jean.
No questions, thank you.
Now, has the Board of Health approved the septic system?
I believe they have, yes.
Because I'm not sure if that smaller house, what are they going, 5 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms? Are they working? Just curious as to the different sizes of the two possible dwellings. Is that why there's a chance of a bigger house in the septic system can handle the house shown on this plan? Yeah.
Nope, we've designed the septic for a 4-bedroom, which would be
Four-bedroom,
in the
okay,
case of the larger house. And I
Okay.
believe with the smaller house, it'd even go down to 3 bedrooms, so.
So, is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to comment on this project? I'm seeing none.
Move to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. The hearing is closed. Go, Denise.
Move to accept the project with, is this an RD or an NOI?
NOI.
Standard order of conditions with added dry wells, added 30-foot no activity zone signage, and providing a proof of, not just, the adding of the fence, but also proof that you're not in the endangered species area?
Yep.
Provide that paperwork. And number what?
I know we received it today.
File number?
Yeah.
SE 076-2799.
So we're looking for dry wells,
The
signage for
signage
the no work,
and the
a
fence.
fence to identify the 30-foot no work zone across the property,
And proof of
and proof that it's not endangered
species.
species. That be the motion.
So I just have one comment
Yes.
before you vote. I don't think it necessarily has to be an entire fence. I think we have approved just posts with the signage as well.
Correct.
So
It is so close to the wetland.
it's just a suggestion. It could be a fence or post, but
I would prefer a fence, but that was, the fence is in the motion. Anybody want to modify the motion?
Nope.
I'm seeing none, so the
Fence.
motion stands. Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
600. It could be a split rail, something, doesn't have to be a chain link or anything like that, just something to identify, hey, you don't dig beyond this. Okay,
Right.
thank
Okay.
you. And don't start the work until you get all the paperwork from Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have some continued hearings that I believe are going to have some activity on them. Next one up. Luz Marie Corkley, 10, 14, 16 River Terrace, Wareham. Anybody here for that project?
We got bad news for you. They requested a continuance. The association they're dealing with isn't having their meeting until tomorrow night. So they're still waiting for guidance from them before they can do any work.
All right, so we'll need a motion.
They've requested a continuance to July 19th.
19th?
Correct.
That's right, they got a big party coming up, my 100th anniversary party at Parkwood. Okay. I have a motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
600 until 7:19. All right, next one. We have a continued hearing for the Pinehurst Beach Association, off of Pinehurst Beach Association. Anybody here for that project?
Of course.
Please identify yourselves.
Kevin Murphy, trustee, Pinehurst Beach Improvement Association.
Kathleen Manson, President, Pinehurst Beach Improvement Association.
David Moore, trustee, Pinehurst Beach Improvement Association.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Okay, since our last hearing, we had our engineer meet with Josh to iron out any remaining issues. One of the remaining issues following that meeting, I spoke with Josh and the engineer Tuesday, and one of the remaining issues was the wall, the stairs, and where the proposed location of the end of the rebuild is going to be, and it'll be to the right-hand side of those steps. And I gave a package to Mr. Sullivan and asked him to discuss it with Mr. Menard about the possibility of using small stone on those steps to prevent further erosion and deterioration. Our project will be cleaning up all of the rock that's been strewn around by storms from the previous jetty and the deterioration of the steps. Mr. Menard I called again today, spoke with Ms. Neal, and she said that Derek, I believe, went down and spoke with. Did he get down to your office?
No. Oh.
No, I did speak to Derek today, yes.
Okay.
Dave Menard is on vacation for this week. And when you're through, I can speak about the conversation I've had with Derek.
Okay, well, that's where I left it with Ms. Neal. She said that Derek had gone down to conservation. I believe we've touched on all of the issues, we've corrected all of them, but I don't know what the status is, the last conversation with Josh and Mr. Sullivan. So I guess that's all I have.
So, this project has been in front of the commission for quite a while now. It started well before I came in and kind of picked up more speed as I started with the town. Through a lot of meetings, I think we're finally at a place that we can be comfortable with, what's happening. I had a conversation with Derek this afternoon, and the biggest thing for that conversation with Derek is gaining access to the beach to install the jetty. For them to go over their seawall, it looks like they have at least a 3-foot drop on the seaward side. Really, the best access is over this dilapidated staircase. Their proposal is to bring in smaller stones, create an access over the staircase, and build their jetty that way. My conversation with Derek, we're both in agreement that cleaning up that staircase would be a benefit to the town and anyone trying to access the beach. The current fence that is blocking access to the beach is just about ready to fall over anyway. So, I hadn't had a chance to speak to the applicants about this, as I just spoke to Derek, maybe 5:30 or so. But, you know, we would be interested in allowing you guys to remove the fence that's currently there if you can ensure that the access that you make would be safe for the public to use, which I think is probably a goal in line with what you're trying to accomplish. And then we would request that some type of wooden, you know, post and rail fence be erected just to prevent people from driving over the end of that road. So, you know, you may want to take some time to discuss it with the association, if that's something you're amenable to, is kind of cleaning up that staircase a little bit while you have the machinery in place, making it safer for the public to access, and, you know, continuing on with your project.
Okay, I don't see a big problem with that. The only concern I have is that those steps are on town property. And would the town be asking the association to erect the fence on town property?
I mean, that's a further conversation we could have. Either you erect it or we have the municipal maintenance folks erect it. But I think the goal that me and Derek saw was to get something to prevent, you know, people driving over the end of it.
We had a similar situation down at the end of Cottage Street when we replaced the retaining wall, or the seawall there, and the town put some bollards, some bright yellow bollards on town property to prevent somebody from driving over the edge again.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had there, but I think the end goal would be to have access limited to,
Yes.
you know, create a more safe access. So, after I met with the engineer, there's a few conditions that he and I agreed to ensure that this project could be, hopefully, approved by the commission. The stones of the jetty should be large enough that any wave action or any natural forces not move them. We both kind of agreed that somewhere in the range of 200 to 500 pound boulders. I don't think that's out of line with what he was proposing, but I think actually setting a set weight is something that we'll end up conditioning tonight, being 250 to 500 pounds. Another condition would be that the PBIA maintain the jetty in perpetuity. It's on your property. I don't see you having an issue with that condition. So, you know, if the jetty becomes in disrepair, you'll be required to maintain it. I don't think that's a hard condition to be met. And then, so the Wetlands Protection Act sets performance standards for coastal beaches and jetties alike, and we'll just put in the condition that you meet those performance standards. Those performance standards are 10.27 in the Wetlands Protection Act. John, your engineer, is well aware of them, and that should not be an issue in terms of that. So with all that being said, I would recommend the issuance of an order of conditions.
Do we wait until we get confirmation that there will be something built by the town to prevent auto access to the beach? Or do you have assurance that it will happen?
The only thing that I would be held up on right now is not being able to speak to Dave Menard. Because if that is something that he's going to do, I don't want to put him on the hook for something he doesn't know about in a public hearing.
I mean, doesn't have to be a fence, it could be the bollards, it could be square little big wooden posts and stuff like that, like they're gonna do at Shangri-La Playground. I mean, something that prevents a vehicle from coming off that area and going down to the beach.
I imagine, depending on how big these stones actually look, you could probably throw a few of those down. So, I think there are multiple options. Like I said, I just don't want to commit Dave Menard to doing something he's unaware of.
And there are standards in order how to build a jetty, which means putting sand between the stones and stuff like that. So there are written standards that would be followed.
Yep, so the standard that really speaks to that is the height of entrapment. And basically that height of entrapment is level with the beach. So where their jetty is being proposed to be built on the sand, the height of entrapment should be met, no problem. And again, that will be covered in the performance standard. So it wouldn't need its own separate condition, it would just be, meet the performance standard of 10.27.
10.27. All right. Kwame, I'll start with your questions.
No questions, thank you.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
In reference to the steps, they're going to be building steps to access the beach to build the jetty?
So
What's going on? I don't understand the steps.
I don't necessarily think it has to be steps. They definitely need some type of ramp to get, whatever machine they're using down. And if they can construct that in a way that it's also able for, the public to use, I think it could probably remain the way that,
All right,
that it
you're
is.
asking them to build it, but they're not going to take responsibility if somebody gets hurt on it when it becomes public property. Is that correct?
I suppose so, yeah.
Can we check on that also?
I think that would probably fall more in line with me having a conversation with Dave Menard.
Okay, because I don't think they should be responsible if anybody gets hurt on something that they've built on.
I would agree with that, and, maybe it's just Dave Menard meeting them out there to review what the final product is,
Okay,
and if it's safe enough for,
And additionally to that, I don't think they should be responsible for putting a fence on town property to stop people from going over the edge. That should be the town's responsibility.
okay.
Michael,
No questions, thank you.
Autumn,
No questions, thank you.
Paula Jean.
No questions, thank you.
One of the comments I'd like you to have with Mr. Menard, you talked about putting some fairly smaller stones or that would help for a transport to access the beach. But if we're looking at 200 to 500 pounds in the jetty to prevent washing away, I would be very concerned about smaller stones to be driven over. Will they be washed away? So maybe when they get done with the construction, the bigger boulders be added to prevent the smaller stones that will be used for access. Did I just make sense or not?
Complicated.
I'm a little confused, but go ahead.
So I think maybe a better solution to this is myself, Dave Menard, the folks from the PBIA get together on site and really try to figure out what the safest and most efficient way to construct this would be. And once you have our sign off of it, maybe then the order of conditions could be released for the project.
I
Okay.
think, can I,
Yes.
so the deterioration is significantly worse than what these pictures reflect now?
Yep.
And you essentially are coming down, this is where the steps are, and then it just drops down.
Yep.
Right.
So anything virtually that we do will be safer
Then what it is.
than what is there today. As David mentioned couple of hearings ago, the posts are rotting, and as a matter of fact, the people that come to fish have now pushed the middle post, because you can just push it aside. It's rotted that badly, so it's wide open. And then they have to jump down. We also discussed at the last hearing that once it falls onto the beach, it's on our property, similar to if your tree falls onto our property. So, but what the town might consider at relatively small cost is a better solution than the one they used on Cottage Street, which is to put large boulders at the end of the road. We could maybe convince them to
okay.
put those boulders down here. They're this big. It would certainly keep a car from driving over the edge at virtually no cost to the town.
And that would be some of the discussions you would have with Mr. Menard.
Menard, right.
These, the Pinehurst Beach Association and Josh, so we'll leave that up to you to come back to be the most safest and efficient way to handle access to the beach through town property and the safety of that access once construction has been completed.
Yeah, I see no issue with that.
Is there anybody in the audience that has comment on this project? Anybody online? Yes.
A point that I brought up earlier in one of the other hearings, that it's the intent of this reconstruction to bring back, it will accumulate sand, and the pictures that we showed before showed a situation that existed at least until probably 1990, where only one step was showing. The beach sand was up there. So that's going to help everybody as far as access to the beach.
Yeah, well, when I understand, there will be no steps. It will all be rocks, correct?
I think that's a conversation we can have to actually
Yes.
iron out the details of. If it
Okay.
makes sense to put steps there, then maybe that's a alternative we look at.
But if we put steps there, it would have to be, it will come back onto their property because it's so far away from the town property. So we have that, because right now, those steps have fallen onto your beach property. And if we put steps, then we're putting steps on their property.
No, they'd have to be built back in
Just-
the way that they used to be.
But if we put the steps where they are now, away from the, we'd have to be very careful about if we are to build steps, we cannot put it on your property, which means all of that material that has fallen onto the beach would have to be removed in order for the steps to be constructed. You and Mr. Menard deal
Yeah, I
with
think
that.
we
yeah.
can, I think we can meet them out there and have a conversation of, you know, what the best route for their access and making it safe for the public, and try to meet somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Okay,
Should we continue?
nope. Are we done?
How do you approve this?
With the stipulation that there be a meeting and that standard order conditions are not released until Josh is comfortable with the solution that's come back with the three parties.
I
He
think
will
that's-
hold the,
I'll hold the order of conditions
until you're comfortable.
yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Are
So-
you comfortable with that?
It'll be way better than it is now, and far safer.
So,
So we're going to accept the
well,
project
yeah.
with the condition that they're meeting.
Yeah, do you want to close the hearing
Close the
first?
hearing. Move
Wait,
to close the
question
hearing.
is,
Yeah.
can I not vote on this because this started prior to my joining the commission?
You can abstain if you wish.
Abstain? Okay, thank you.
Close the hearing. I have a motion to close the hearing and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
You can close the hearing. You can
Aye.
close the hearing,
Close the
600. Now we're going to talk into the approval of the project with an order of conditions, and let's see what Denise remembers.
All right, I've
All
got
right.
that there's going to be some type of access going over the stairs in order for you to build the project and for public access, that the fence is going to, you're going to discuss removal of the fence with, what's the gentleman's name?
Dave Menard.
Menard, and come up with a way of blocking it for public access.
Vehicle.
Vehicles don't go over the edge. The jetty stones have to be large enough to withstand storms, so between the 200 to 500-pound boulders. The maintenance and repair is going to be your responsibility. Something about a 10.27 of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Performance standards.
Performance standards.
And I will note that it was
Yeah.
250 pounds to 500.
250?
250. So this is the
250.
10.27 of the performance standards for
Standards.
jetties.
For jetties. And it'll be up to Josh to finalize everything with the association and Mr. Menard.
I believe that covers everything,
I
yeah.
think that is our motion.
And that the orders will be held until that takes
Yep.
place.
Correct.
Okay.
I have that
Motion,
motion.
second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Abstained?
Aye.
501.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
12 years. Thank you.
The next continued hearing is Jonathan and Vanessa Sharkley, 19 over Jordan Road. Anybody here for that project? Oh, it's Sam again.
Good evening, Brian Wallace with JC Engineering.
Why did I call you Sam?
Oh, he was just sitting here a second ago.
They look so much alike.
We've gotten that before, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, Brian.
Oh, no
Okay.
worries.
Here we go.
All right. So, last time we had met with the commission, we had not yet received comments from the Division of Marine Fisheries yet. Actually, we received them about 4 o'clock that afternoon, so they weren't able to be brought into the record. And we had also not received comments from the harbor master. Since then, we have received both comments from DMF as well as from the harbor master. As a result of some of the comments from the harbor master, we opted to conduct a shellfish survey and have a report prepared, which has been provided to the commission as well. So it's always a concern, with shellfish habitat. All piers are built in land over land under the ocean, which is land containing shellfish. So the report would be helpful in being able to quantify just the type of impacts that this pier would have. The report that was done by ECR identified mostly quahogs, a couple of shellfish, a couple of soft shell clams, razor clams as well in the vicinity of the project. So looking at the total resulting density, we were at about 0.5 shellfish per square foot. The piles that we are proposing over land under the ocean would account for 14.2 square feet, and that would result in an impact of about 6 to 7 shellfish. So that way we could kind of quantify sort of the impacts of the pier. The harbor master commented on a couple things as well to the agent Josh. Let me just get that here. So he had mentioned that there were some propagation efforts, that some shellfish from a contaminated site were brought here, but that was well over 10 years ago. So that was part of the reason we wanted to do the report and survey as well. They had mentioned that there was nearby an area used as a landing area for commercial harvesters, and that is adjacent, what we believe is adjacent to the site. However, that is over private property. Over Jordan Road is a private road. There really is no parking available at any point there, so it isn't really anticipated that this is an area that's frequently used by shell fishermen. So that is essentially all the new information that we're wanted to provide. Again, I wanted to reiterate that this project meets all of the standards and requirements that are set forth in the wetland bylaw. So we feel that this project is approvable, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Josh?
So I will add that your bylaw does require a shellfish habitat evaluation. It states piers shall not be allowed to be constructed within significant shellfish habitat as determined by the Division of Marine Fisheries and/or the Wareham Shellfish Constable. And then it also says the absence of shellfish may not mean that productive shellfish habitat does not exist. The commission has denied docks and piers in this area historically, and you've also approved some within this habitat. So it may be the case where this area is deemed more valuable than other places by the commission, and that's why you've made your decisions. But that's my comments.
Okay. I know Denise, you can.
I worked really hard on this weekend. I went through everything. You're going to have to bear with me. I've got quite a bit of comments here. The importance of consistency in our decisions cannot be emphasized enough. The integrity of the commission relies on it. This body of water has been historically denied for new docks. 15 over Jordan Road, February of 2021. 17 over Jordan Road, October of 2021. 17 Lydia's Island, 11/2021. 9 Lydia's Island, February 2022. And 4 and 6 Shell Lane, Lot 1032B, February 2022. Each of those projects was deemed to inhibit and to be detrimental to the recreational value of this area. Historically, this small area of shoreline is active with both recreational use by the surrounding neighborhoods and is open to both commercial and recreational shellfishing, per the Wareham Harbor Master letter of August 2021, letter in reference to both 17 and 9 Lydia's Island. The term recreation is defined in our bylaws, Section 3, as including without limitation the purposes for which the resource areas are used by the public, such as navigation, fishing, hunting, shellfishing, swimming, water skiing, diving, walking, etc. A project must be designed so as not to impair the ability of the resource area to provide for these and other normal and customary public recreation uses. While each project is evaluated on its own merit, our commission needs to keep an eye on the health and well-being of our community and its environment as a whole. Page 13 of the 6/6/23 survey of the ECR shows cove pictures. The recreational value of this area is important. There are 5 docks already in this cove. Per the April 3rd, 2023 letter from the Division of Marine Fisheries and the most recent shellfish survey, Sunset Cove is mapped as shellfish habitat for the northern quahog, soft-shell clam, American oyster, and bay scallops. Per DMF, additionally, Sunset Cove is mapped as shellfish habitat for the northern quahog, soft-shell clam, American oyster, bay scallops, but it is also designated a shellfish growing area per the DMF and Harbor Master. Land containing shellfish is deemed significant to the interest of the Wetlands Protection Act, 310 CMR 10.34, and the protection of marine fisheries. Sunset Cove also acts as a winter flounder spawning habitat. The Atlantic State Marine Fisheries Commission has designated winter flounder spawning habitat as a habitat area of particular interest, or concern, Given the new status of the winter flounder stock, every effort should be made to protect the species and its spawning habitat. While some of these impacts can be avoided and reduced with the best management practices, others are unavoidable and will result in permanent impacts to the shellfish habitat and associated fisheries access. Sport piles, floats, and adjacent footprints will likely not be accessible to commercial or recreational fisheries. This body of water has already been through litigation, and citing Gray versus Wareham Conservation Commission, the court must give substantial deference to the commission's factual findings and its reasonable interpretations of its regulations. Page 5 of that litigation. Concerning arbitrary and capricious, a claim that the commission did not consider an individual application on its merit, but rather acted pursuant to an unstated campaign against further development is more easily made than proved. Page 6 of that litigation. Section 567.2 of the Wareham bylaw empowers the commission to deny an order of conditions for failure to meet requirements of its bylaw, for failure to avoid or prevent unacceptable, significant, or cumulative effects upon the resource area values protected by this bylaw, and where not conditions are adequate to protect those values. Page 8 of that litigation. As stated previously, the DMF letter clearly states that Sunset Cove is mapped as shellfish habitat, and lands containing shellfish is deemed significant to the interest of the Wetlands Protection Act, 310 10.34. Gray's motion for judgment on the pleadings was denied, and the commission's cross motion was allowed. Based on that decision and the cited letters and the bylaws, I believe that there is not just a justification for denial of the stock in this cove, but a legal precedent has been set. Additionally, I would like to, there was a slate walkway that was put down and I needed to address that as needing to be removed from the resource area.
Thank you. I definitely would like to have that document in its entirety attached to the set of minutes that will come from tonight's meeting. So if you could forward it to Josh so he can pass it on to our clerk that's doing the minutes. Are you talking about these slates that now show up?
Correct. They're here.
Yep. They weren't there before, were they?
I don't know.
Brian, do you know what we're talking about? In the document that came for the Shellfish survey had pictures of stepping stones.
Yes, I do recall seeing those at the site. I can't recall when they were installed, if they were...
Could have been some time ago.
Could have been some time
And
ago,
it looks
yeah.
like there's a couple pylons floating in the water, too. I can see them in the low tide picture. But, okay. So that is a lot to digest. Denise, thank you very much. I know this is, yes. We have denied a lot in this particular bay, hoping to keep it a recreational.
Area.
Okay. Kwame, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Carol?
No questions.
Michael?
No questions, thank you.
Autumn?
No questions, thank you.
Yes.
No questions, thank you.
Now, the first hearing was April 5th, and it's been continued and continued, so I believe we probably had 1 or 2 hearings after April 5th in which there is actually discussion. I want to make sure that those that are going to vote and sign this whatever happens tonight, will accuse themselves if they were not here for any and all of those hearings. I do not want to find ourselves in a problem that we signed something that we didn't hear all testimony. So either you attended or you filled out a document saying you have seen the entirety of the meeting. Just to make clear, because I know, Autumn, you haven't heard any of this before, so please do not sign the document and ask you to abstain from voting.
Josh keeps track of that.
Yep, and I will, in addition to that, will say that if you do miss a hearing, you can cover yourself under the reviewing it and signing that document. You cannot miss 2 meetings and do that.
Yep.
So if you miss 2, you cannot vote at all.
But a lot of the meetings were continued with no discussion at all, so I don't think they count.
Correct. If there was no relevant information in the hearing, it does not count towards you missing it or not missing it.
Okay.
It's only meetings that discussion was
Okay,
had.
thank you.
Do you remember the day of the last meeting?
I will do some looking. Brian, you have follow-up?
Yes. So first, just regarding the meeting procedure so far, so we did open the public hearing on April 5th, and there has not been any discussion since then until tonight. As far as I'm concerned, I don't believe we've been in front of the commission and presented any new information since then. And I do believe at that meeting, the only member here that wasn't present was Kwame, I want to say. But I think it would be important to get some verification on that. I just had reviewed the minutes beforehand, so I don't know if that's something that can be determined now, or if we should, if there's any other way to address that, but I think that can be considered. But in the meantime, I'd be happy to respond to some of the comments that have been brought up. So I do understand, this particular section of the Bay projects in the past have been denied. It's our opinion that these projects that have been denied have been in very close proximity to each other, whereas this dock is only close to one that currently exists, which is shown on the plan over at 21 over Jordan Road. It's 115.2 feet away from that structure. And then the nearest structure beyond that is located over at 13 over 13 over Jordan Road. That one is approximately 462 feet away from the proposed pier. And if you measure along the shoreline 791 feet away, there's a pier at 23 over Jordan Road, which is approximately 690 feet away when measured along the shoreline. So I would disagree that it follows the precedent that has been set before by some of the denials. This is a more of an open area that does not have an overwhelming number of existing docks and piers. Furthermore, in regards to the recreational value, we don't believe that this is, restricting that or reducing that in any way. The pier has been designed at a high enough elevation where people on kayaks can simply pass under as they would have before without a dock there. They'll have to, of course, avoid piles, but the only area they wouldn't really be able to access is the float. And where the float is proposed, there is an existing mooring which has a boat. So there really wouldn't be any characteristic changes as far as the recreational value of this area. The piles would displace about 14 square feet of land under the ocean, which is probably about the size of this table. So again, we don't feel that that is a significant taking in any way. And as far as the requirements set forth in the bylaw, I understand the commission has, one way of interpreting that. It lists, environmental impacts that are associated with docks, cumulative impacts, and then it states, and I quote, "In order to prevent impacts to resource areas and interests protected under this bylaw, any dock or pier proposed within a coastal or tidal waterway shall adhere to the following standards." We meet every single one of those standards. So there should be no reason under this bylaw to deny this project if we meet all of the standards and requirements that have been sort of set forth here.
Can I just readdress? But we did deny at 15 over Jordan, and we denied at 17 over Jordan, which are the two properties right next to this property. So it's not as if we're just denying down at the one end of this cove. We have denied up this end of the cove also.
Okay.
So I believe that, as I said, the precedent, both legally and within our staying consistent, has been met. Sorry. It's just how I feel.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the characteristics of those projects. They could have been a lot longer, more impactful structures. We're designing as short of a structure as we can to meet the regulations.
Okay. Anybody in the audience would like to comment on this project? Please come forward and identify yourself.
My name is Scott Soby.
Scott what?
Soby, S-O-B-Y. I just have two questions. One is about the nature of the survey, the shellfish survey. It was expressed in terms of area, which really surprised me because shellfish live not just in a two-dimensional space, but in a three-dimensional space. Is it standard to do a survey for shellfish in a two-dimensional arrangement rather than in a volume?
Josh, you want to comment? I thought I dug holes, so I thought it was three-dimensional.
I believe it is done in a three-dimensional area. The survey is done as they go out. They determine where the survey is going to be done, and then they dig into the ground to determine the exact number of shellfish within their survey area.
Well, that's why I was surprised it was expressed in area rather than in volume.
Well, okay. It's,
And then, so the other question I had is there any scientific literature on the impact of the construction of piers or docks on shellfish or other fish populations?
A bunch of it.
I just did a quick search on PubMed, couldn't find anything.
I did not bring, let me see if I brought the doc folder.
His impact is one thing. It could be a positive impact, it could be a negative impact.
Or it could be an accumulative impact if all the others had been, see the picture? How many docks do you see there? If everything had been approved, there would have been 7 more.
I'm just wondering if the,
7 or 6 more?
Oh, 7 only because of the Chapter 91
Yep.
one.
So,
if the law and the bylaws are concerned with fish or shellfish populations and decreasing them, maybe the populations would increase rather than decrease. You know, like shellfish clinging to pilings and things like that. You may have an increase in the shellfish that you're
more
worried
mussels.
about. Sorry?
More mussels.
Certainly
like-
more mussels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mussels aren't within the,
Nope.
yeah.
So that may have a negative impact or a positive impact on other species. I was just wondering whether the commission or the engineering or the requesters have examined that literature in detail.
We take suggestions from the Division of the Marine Fisheries, and they're the ones who usually let us know what's in that area and how much of it is there and if it's significant or not.
Okay, I just have those 2 questions.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody else?
May I respond?
Please.
Okay. So just looking at the report prepared by ECR, so they did 3-foot by 3-foot plots, and they did take some pictures of those. It looks like they went about a foot down. It's hard to tell with the water and the mud that might have, risen when they dug the hole. As far as, benefits of piles being constructed, they do provide surface area for, as was stated, for other shellfish to cling and adhere to. It provides habitat and shelter for other forms of sea life. So it's not a total net loss of impact. It certainly brings a lot more, potential biodiversity to the area. And sort of referring back to, the movement of shellfish, of course, when one condition that I may have brought up before, and the reporter at the last meeting that I think the applicant would be willing to follow is during the time of construction, where the piles are being placed, shellfish at that location can be harvested and transported elsewhere. So there would not be any direct loss of shellfish at the time of construction. So that's a condition that might make the commission feel a little bit better. That's certainly something we'd be willing to do.
Okay. Anybody else? Are you comfortable closing the hearing?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
600. The hearing is closed. Okay.
Move to deny the project based on my overview, and I don't know exactly how to state it. And the legal precedent that has been set in this cove.
And the results of the shellfish survey saying there is shellfish.
And the
I think
fisheries is designated the winter flounder spawning habitat as
Yep.
a habitat of particular concern.
so. Based on the documents we received from the Division of Marine Fisheries,
Atlantic State Marine Fisheries, Harbor Master,
and
as I said, the litigation of Gray versus Wareham Conservation Commission in this area.
there's a lot there.
There is a lot.
So that's the motion to deny.
Second.
I have a second. I'm going to do a roll call. Kwame.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Sandy. Aye. Denise.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Autumn.
Aye.
Abstain.
Yeah, you have to abstain.
Abstain.
So the vote is 0, 5, 1.
No, Oh, yeah,
051 to deny.
501 to deny.
Oh, so it's 501
to
that's it,
deny.
505 to deny, no votes against deny, and 1 abstain. Sorry, 501 to deny. You were well prepped for tonight.
Well, do the best we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe that is the end of our hearings. The next thing we have is no enforcement orders, no extensions, no, now, what we have is a discussion of the 120 Cremisi Road conservation restriction. We have a request to hold a CR for a piece of property that is being considered for purchase. Is there someone from the Wareham Land Trust who would like to come and talk to us about that?
Thank you very
Please.
much.
Please identify yourself.
I am Nancy McHale. I'm the treasurer of the Wareham Land Trust. Elise Leduc Fleming, our executive director, would be here herself, except that she is in conjunction with Patrick Marshall of the Wareham Library, is leading a solstice paddle tonight at Whitlock's Landing.
So she's paddling?
So she is paddling.
They're in my neighborhood. Yes, they are in your neighborhood. I was a steward of that property for years.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are here asking if the commission would be willing to consider holding the conservation restriction on this 3.58 acre parcel at 120 Cremisi Road. This piece of property is actually contiguous with other town-owned land. It abuts the Marks Cove Conservation Quilt. If you look over the it's Cedar Island Creek, as Cedar Island Creek becomes Marks Cove. So it's a really interesting piece of property. And it's been used by the neighborhood for years to go down and do bird watching and things like that. So the Marks Cove Conservation Area is about 100 acres. It's a quilt that there's parcels that are owned by the Land Trust, by the Wildlands Trust, by Mass Audubon, by BBC, by the town. So it's a cooperative adventure down there. But that is well managed. But there's really not a lot of access to be able to view the wildlife or see what's there. But this parcel is important in that it does connect on Cremisi. There's a piece of town-owned land right next to it, just north of it. So it connects that whole section for wildlife habitat, for the property values there.
Would this CR be similar to what we've agreed to hold for the Sawyer property?
It is. It is.
But you would be looking for more like Sawyer for trails?
Probably.
Viewing station, maybe?
I'm sorry, what?
Viewing station, trail, something?
Just a viewing. There is currently what appears to have been an old driveway through the property from Cremisi, basically down to the water, so that it's a well-worn neighborhood path at this point in time. That would be, actually, you could probably get a wheelchair down there, so that there's public access. And yes, we would want to keep that site open. Again, if it would need to be an RDA or whatever.
Can you put your cursor on the, that one?
Yeah, right there.
And it does contain upland, so it is
It
buildable.
does.
So
It
that is a
does.
major consideration. And to be, I do expect that there should be a CPC request for the purchase of this land brought forward in the 2 weeks to CPC, and you're just looking to see if someone will hold the CR prior to that meeting.
What we are looking for is, A, to see if somebody will hold the CR, but not only for the CPC application, but we are also drafting an application for a community, or a conservation partnership grant with the state. And for that, we need a letter from the town saying that they would be willing to hold the conservation restriction. And that application is due around the same time that the CPC is, which is why we're here earlier in the process than we were for Sawyer.
So, agreement to hold the conservation restriction and writing a letter that we will hold the conservation restriction.
Right.
That's
Right.
the two.
That's the two things. So presumably, it would be necessary to go to the Board of Selectmen as well, so we would I'll put in a note, a request to the Select Board tonight to be on their next agenda to get that approved as well.
Josh, anything to add?
I see no issue with holding the CR for this property, if it's gonna be handled in a similar way that the Sawyer property is done, where really, the town is reviewing, document prepared by the Wareham Land Trust, an annual monitoring report. So, you know, as well as the Sawyer property, I don't see the town having an issue with it.
Questions? Kwame?
No questions.
Carol?
No questions.
Denise?
You said that the path was wide enough for wheelchairs. It's going to be handicap accessible?
That is my personal hope. I have not had anyone, verify that that's, but it is, if you've been out to Whitlock's Landing, there's a hard pack path that goes down to where people can launch their kayaks. I'm not expecting kayak launches here because quite frankly, it's muck, okay? I've had somebody from the neighborhood tell me that they had their water shoes sucked off their feet when they tried to get out. Yeah, no. So I don't expect that to be happening here, more of a viewing platform sort of thing. But when I walked down there, I didn't have a problem. So I think that it's that same kind of, it's just been used by the neighborhood for years. And this would legitimize the public access to a water body. The birds down there are great.
And I just want to thank you for the work that you do.
You're welcome.
Michael?
No comments, thank you.
Autumn?
One question about parking. Is there an area where people are parking just off the road? Are we going to add something a little more sturdy for that? What's your vision for parking?
Those are all up for discussion, but at this point in time, there's like people have been pulling off the road, and you can easily put like 2 cars right there. And that's been used for years.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can't imagine this gets terribly busy.
Yeah.
Paula Jean?
No questions, thank you.
Anybody else? I'm done. So we should have if someone is willing to request that Mr. Flaherty writes a letter to indicate our approval of writing and supporting a CR on the property and writing a letter to that, to who do you need to send it to? You'll tell Josh, right?
I would say that, is it okay if Elise gets in contact with Josh as to the exact who, what, when, where needs to write the letter? What we need basically is that the Conservation Commission is willing and able to hold this conservation restriction for the town.
Okay, so that be it. All in favor? Aye. 600.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's almost 8 o'clock. You're out here early.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, next on the, we have a set of minutes for June 6th, but it really was June 7th. I've read them. I've given my few comments to Josh to modify. And so I'm good with the June 7, 2023 minutes as corrected.
Did we note that my name is Autumn and not Amber?
Yeah, we
Okay,
fixed
thank
that.
Yes.
And I also asked that you be identified as an associate, so they know when we have a vote of 400 with 5 people listed as to why it wasn't 500. So yes, that it got corrected. And we did add comment that Mr. White was thanked at the beginning of the beginning of the meeting, and there were a couple other corrections.
Said my corrections in
Yep.
also.
So, someone wants to make a motion to accept the June 7th, 2023 minutes?
Make a motion to accept the June 7th,
Yep.
2023 minutes.
Second.
All have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, it's done. Now, the next thing we have is that at the beginning of each fiscal year, we reorganize the commission. Kwame is clerk, Denise is chair, vice chair, and I'm chair. Kwame, you're willing to continue?
Yes, thank you.
Denise?
Yep.
And I am. So I'll need a motion and acceptance that our chair, vice chair, and clerk remain the same.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 6-0. So it's done. So I believe anything else on this before we go to carrot cake and cupcakes?
We're good.
Think we're good?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
8 o'clock. Thank you very much. Thank you.